Breaking news. Bottom stabs someone at top drawer. It's the best joke that you've said in a long time. I need to explain. We decided yesterday to go to Studio City. We had some errands to run. And we would go into a little, what would you call top drawer? Writing implements emporium?
It's a boutique.
Boutique?
Yes.
So it's a little store where they
have a lot of shit, actually.
They actually have merchandise out and you can touch it, which I know is a rarity now in major cities. Like, you're not allowed to do that anymore. But they have these tables that are full of pens and notebooks and pretty glasses and little gift things.
They have a lot of merchandise. It's not just writing implements.
They do, but it's a neat...
Mostly writing implements.
It's kind of a neat store because everything is very like the price tags are hand typed out. It's very aesthetic.
With someone's label maker.
Yeah, well, you know.
But no, it's like someone who like is what's the word?
An aesthetic.
Japophile, like someone someone who loves Japanese things a little bit too much, made a store that is like... Why are you laughing at me?
Because there's a word for it. It's like a Sinophile is someone who likes China.
Okay.
And there's another one that's
I don't know the Latin for Japanese. So
I think it's Nippon is the term for Japan in Latin languages. Nippon, because I think even in Spanish and also Italian.
No.
So, isn't it?
No.
Was it Japan? The J is silent?
Yeah.
Okay, so...
In Spanish, yeah.
So what would you call it? Nippophile. That sounds like a really bad word I just said, and I can't place it now. I have to look it up.
So anyway...
Japophile. Sinophile, but for Japan. I'm going to get put on a list.
Okay. The point is, someone who clearly likes Japanese things a little bit too much made a store who has like, Japanese-inspired scarves and handkerchiefs and slippers.
Shinichi.
What?
Japanophilia, again, sounds like a horrible term, but the Japanese term for it is shinichi.
Okay, well, we're not Japanese,
Pro-nichi.
Okay.
Well,
the point is, someone who loves Japanese things in Japan a little bit too much made a store, and the notebooks, the pens, the pencils, the wallets, the eyewear, the pocket squares, like everything is just very Asian.
Well, but by that token, it's very well crafted. So everything is
it's not ugly or anything.
No,
it's
everything
a great
is
store.
It's very clean. Yeah. It's very well made. Like it's very craftsman. Like a craftsman sat there and hand sewed stuff together.
If it weren't so damn expensive, I'd buy a few things in there.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I guess the hipsters maybe have kind of ruined that sort of that category of stuff. But
so, for example, if I wanted to go down to the beach and I didn't want to bring my wallet because my wallet is leather, I didn't want it to get wet or anything. They have very nice card holders, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
They're $85, and I'm just like, this is plastic. Like,
but that's hand poured plastic.
Oh, okay.
Not leg poured. God forbid you pour plastic with your feet. But it's handmade.
It's a really cool, like, little plastic holder for cards that is like watertight, and you won't, if you go into the ocean, your cards won't get wet, or your cash won't get wet.
Yeah.
And it has two sides to it that are very nifty, and I would love to have one, but I'm not going to pay $85 for a piece of plastic.
Yeah, it's a little much.
A piece of plastic with magnets in it. That's
it's
all
a good gift place for men or difficulty with social skills women, which defines the woman, I think, who was working there yesterday, who was very clearly very nice, but very on the spectrum, and who I almost sent into a little bit of an autism spiral when I was looking at a pen and I decided to look at a pencil instead.
And as I said, you were speaking to your own kind.
Yes, I think that was the problem.
Yes.
But I bought this person was also Italian because they had an Italian name on the receipt. And I bought a German-made brass pencil, which is very cool and you can like sketch and write with, and a Japanese notebook. So I'm bringing the Axis with me, you know? Yes. It's the Axis of Wyatt, which I think is more damaging than the actual Axis of Evil was.
Fair.
So Bottom stabbed someone at Top Drawer.
Are you trying to use my joke as I said it, or are you trying to...
I'm trying to use it enough to where we can use it as the...
the title of the episode.
We can use this as the title of the episode. Because you did pick up a pen and try to stab me in the store. I want to be clear.
The walls were too white. I wanted some red. I wanted some... or in your case, maroon.
Maroon?
Your blood's not oxygenated enough.
Listen, sickle cell is a slur. I did read that somewhere.
We have a lot to talk about. I don't know why we're wasting time.
I started that because I wanted to lead into, speaking of retail theories, is it true that when you go into a TJ Maxx, a Target, or Barnes & Noble that you have to shit? Because I've never had this impulse, but I don't know what you or other people have experienced. Apparently there's something about...
You said earlier today that your place was Barnes & Noble. Every time you walked in, you had to...
I said I saw a meme that said that. I've never taken a shit at Barnes & Noble in my life. Or a Target or a TJ Maxx. I don't shit in public.
Bull.
No, I don't. I don't.
I don't shit, period. Well, enough comes out of your mouth. You don't have to actually let it go out of your ass.
No, I don't trust public toilets. It's gross. But I feel like in Japan they're clean.
You're not going to get an STI from them, despite...
Ask Madonna on death's door. How dare you?
Despite urban legend...
Bacterial girl.
Despite urban legend, you cannot get chlamydia from a toilet seat because that is anaerobic and it will die once it hits oxygen.
I don't know what drag queen anaerobic is, but leave her out of this. But there is a theory that people, when they go into these retail stores, they have to take a shit. Which is why very small retail stores do not have public bathrooms. Like, you cannot take a shit at Top Drawer. If you did, that employee would have a complete breakdown. But I feel like it would have a really nice...
I doubt they even have a bathroom.
I feel like they have to have one for the employees. You can't shut down the store every time an employee has to take a whiz. That'd be really sad.
It's Los Angeles. I don't know.
Did I tell you the time that Khloe Kardashian took a shit in our baby store that we were working at?
Oh, my God.
And we only had one single-use restroom.
Oh, my God. Do not get us canceled.
How can I get it canceled? It's a biological... She was pregnant. She was 9 months pregnant. I don't know what came out, but it took a while. And so we're trying to entertain everybody.
That kid was tap dancing on her colon so mad.
It's in the Texas two-step. So I have a bit of sad news today. As we know it, Padam Padam is over. Now, it's really sad because I enjoyed this song. It was the song of the summer. It didn't even make it to July 1st. But your friend, Andy Cohen, did it in a video at Stonewall, played it for Vice President Kamala Harris.
You're Vice President.
You're Vice President. I didn't vote for her. No one did. That's the problem. She got picked anyway. How do you feel about this? Because we were really enjoying the song.
I still listen to it. I don't know. It doesn't taint it for me.
It tainted it for me, all right.
She didn't write it for that particular interaction, so I'm not going to blame Kylie Minogue for someone's...
Well, here's the problem, and this is, I think, a cultural issue.
By the way, in that video that you're referencing, Kamala didn't seem to like it that much. She went along because she was like, I gotta please these gays.
She danced to it like a vice principal would.
Right, but she dances to everything like that. I don't think
Ellen?
she actually liked it. I don't think she actually liked it.
It doesn't matter. It was played for her, and now she knows what it is. Padam Padam is not official U.S. policy. This is what happens with these songs.
Which is why it shouldn't matter that much.
But this is what happens. A song gets big, and it gets big in a subsect of the online community, which is usually gay. Because gay people don't do anything. They don't have jobs. They don't have friends. All they do is spend all day on the internet drinking iced coffee, and then they go out and drink and hook up. That's all that gays do. So they make things happen in the culture while normal people are at work. So gays get really excited about a song, and then they hear it enough to where they're white female hangers-on who are sitting in HR, breaking chairs.
Fag hags.
Yes. They listen to it, and then they think that they're cool, and then their moms, single, listen to it and think that they're cool, and then it diffuses into the larger culture, which is why my metric is always a song is over when any of the single moms that I know are listening to it unironically. That was how I knew that Lady Gaga song, that Shallow thing, I knew that was dead on arrival, because that was every, that and Million Reasons, done.
So you're telling me that Andy Cohen sped up the process?
I'm saying that Andy Cohen is the conduit for these women. He does this. He takes things from the niche culture and he puts them on Watch What Happens Live, and he puts in his little fuck hut or whatever he calls it on the wall, and he drags these women in there, and he puts a bunch of coke out in the dressing room and gets them all hopped up, and then tells them gay things that they don't know and should not know. There should not be a gay to straight pipeline on television.
You think Sutton Strack is dancing? Well, no, she has her own gays. That's not a good example. You think Garcelle is out there dancing too?
Yes. Yes.
Badam, no.
Yes. Yes, that's what happens. It used to be in New York that Truman Capote would do something cool, and then the women around him would learn it, and then that kind of like stays in some part of New York society. It shouldn't penetrate Omaha. Or Warhol, or or the Club Kids, or any of those sort of like New York cool things. But it's not supposed to permeate the larger culture. If it does that, that's a problem. So,
well, then you should blame the internet and not Andy Cohen.
Gays are the ones who use the internet, though.
As much as I hate Andy Cohen, I'm going to take up for
I'm
just
not blaming poppers. Do you know how many VCRs would stay uncleaned if it wasn't for poppers? You don't blame the item. You don't blame the gun. You blame the shooter. You blame the gays. You don't blame the song.
Again, we have a lot to talk about.
I'm going down a list, but no, this is a problem, and I think that when there's another song like that other song, I Just Met You and It's Just Crazy, Call Me Maybe, another one ruined because that was like a fun girl song, and then you see a bunch of nurses in masks dancing to it with Apple Watches barely attached to their wrist in the largest setting. Awful, horrible, should not be in the larger culture.
I guess I don't know. Let's bring back Slip and Slide.
What's Slip and Slide?
The song that I've played for you 8 million times, Tia.
Tia?
Slip and Slide. Her one-hit wonder, yes.
The one that you listened to in the car as a kid?
Yes, as a kid, yes. I was singing it at the top of my lungs at 5 years old. My mother's like, don't sing that. That's nasty.
That's not what your mother's... I've heard your mother. That's not what she sounds
close
like.
Enough.
No, she doesn't sound like this. She does... She doesn't sound like a bad Andy Richter impersonator on Conan.
Well,
Community property, you son of a bitch.
I can make fun of her all I want. She doesn't listen to this.
Thank God for that.
Yes.
I'm glad that you're keeping this from that element of straight people.
She has no idea that we even do this.
Good. That's the way that it should be. Speaking of gays and why they're a problem, your mayor, Mayor Pete, America's mayor, Secretary of Transportation, and he's dropping the ball again because across America, in anticipation for the 4th of July holiday, people are sitting in airports,
sleeping in airports,
standing in airports,
pissing in airports, shitting in airports,
like
they're TJ Maxx.
Shitting in airports like it's TJ Maxx. I should make that the title. What's the longest you've ever had to stay in an airport? Like flight delay or whatever. Have you ever had to sleep overnight in an airport?
No, because the one time that a flight was delayed so much when my family and I were going to London, we were there for 15 hours at the airport because it just kept getting push, and then finally they were like, we're just going to take off tomorrow, so here's a hotel voucher, and so like hundreds of people are going to like 2 hotels trying to like check in. It was...
What city were you stuck in?
Houston.
Oh, so that's where a lot of the problems are happening now is Houston. So if you're a smart investor, build a hotel near the airport in Houston because people are going to fucking use it.
This is the thing. We drove the 5 hours from Baton Rouge to Houston because it was a lot cheaper to fly out of Houston than it was out of Baton Rouge or New Orleans at the time.
Right, because Houston's an international hub.
So is New Orleans, but
not
Houston
big.
had more direct flights to
Right.
London than
Right.
New Orleans did at the time. So we're talking like, it must have been the late 90s. Like 97, 98, something like that. When
I would love to go to London at that time again. I want to go back in time and go to London then. Not now.
my mom saw Randy Quaid in London.
What?
When we were there, yeah. And she yelled at him and like tracked him down on the street. It's a whole story. She'll happily tell you one day. But I went when I was like 8 years old or something. So yeah, 95, 97, something like that.
So you eventually stayed there. You spent most of a day.
We spent easily 15 hours in the Houston airport.
At a certain point, how much overpriced food can you buy? Because I feel like all the airport food mostly, even especially back then, tasted alike.
I've blocked out the entire memory. Well,
You don't remember the whole 90s.
Okay.
I know. So many drugs.
I'll take the 2 seconds to tell. Okay, so we drove the 5 hours. We were supposed to get on a flight, I think, at around like 9:30.
That's hard enough as it is.
In the morning. We get there. We're ready to go. They push it. After 12 hours of waiting in the airport.
So it's 9 p.m.?
Yes, we get on a plane. Everyone gets on. We get up in the air, start circling the airport, and they're like, as you can see, we're dumping fuel out of our wings because our radar went black, and so we're going to have to land, and you're just going to have to take off tomorrow. And my mother's yelling from the seat next to me, just go east! Just go east! We'll get there! And I'm like, shut up! And we land, and we get this voucher for a La Quinta in the outskirts of Houston. And there's, again, it's a transatlantic flight, so there's hundreds of people on this flight.
Right.
We're going to one
This
or
isn't
two
30 people.
Right. Going to one or two hotels. And so we're like waiting in line. The only real memory I have is being on that plane, hearing, we're going to dump the fuel, and then waiting in that line at La Quinta. Because I had been awake for over 24 hours. We had all been awake for over 24 hours in an airport most of that time. We get to the La Quinta and we're like, last in line, waiting for people to check us in, hoping that they have a room. So yeah, it was a long, bad day.
Why haven't they... I mean, I don't know about many airports, because I know that some lounges have like little like showers and stuff like that, but why has no one made it okay to just build a hotel at the airport? Not even leaving the airport itself. It's post-security. And then you can just go...
one that you can rent by the hour.
Well, then the hookers would just show up.
But they can't get past security without a boarding pass.
That's true. Yeah, that would actually be a good idea. Because
if you have a layover for like 5 hours, because, if you buy a cheaper ticket, you might have a layover that's longer. Nap for a couple hours.
Because, train stations, people, those move all the time.
Pay $20 an hour to take a nap.
But that's the thing. With airports, it is the most uncomfortable place to physically be. You're in a large government building. Like, you don't want to be there for more than is absolutely necessary. And I always feel bad for, like, the restaurants and, like, the theme restaurants in airports, because they try so hard to make it feel like you're somewhere else. And the funniest place is, like, Miami. Like, one of them is, like, a golf-themed sports bar, and the other one's, like, a tiki bar, and so you have, like, the palm fronds. And for a second, if you have a few, rum cocktails, you can start to believe you're still in Miami, and here... This is Flight 97. If you get on the plane, we got LaQuisha. LaTanya is not on the plane. Excuse me, Miss Jackson. I am for real. And then you hear that over the intercom, and you're just like, oh, fuck. Like, I'm back in the airport. So, I think that the airport hotel concept needs to happen. And it doesn't need to be... Here's the thing. No one wants to stay at a hotel that's next to an airport. That's horrible. Having to go through security again and everything like that.
Right.
A lot of people would... Because you can't just have people staying there for 16 hours and then sleeping on the floor in an airport. That's third world. That's not even third world. Even the third world knows what to do.
If you've been to for example, the Atlanta airport, I swear to God, that place might as well be its own city. It just doesn't have any place to sleep.
Yeah.
It has every restaurant. It has every store you could ever want.
Right.
You could buy anything that you could want ever at the Atlanta airport, and they don't have a fucking place to sleep like a hotel.
That's what I don't understand.
That would be the place to test it, to be quite honest.
I think, yeah, because Atlanta's the busiest. Atlanta and O'Hare always trade off for whichever is the busiest one, but Atlanta's definitely larger.
Atlanta's larger, and it has the infrastructure, I think, to support
Something like that.
Small, experimental hotel.
Even if it was just 100 or 150 rooms, I don't think you would have a vacancy there if you did that, because there's always
have
people
to be
who
a
want to
real
stay.
room. It just has to be like a bed with like
the small New York
bathroom.
style rooms, like something, just so people can like take a shower, change, breathe, maybe get a little bite to eat, nap, and then otherwise, what do you want? You want what happens at Fort Lauderdale Airport, where they they're strangling gate agents and throwing the spirit signs across the airport? Is that what you want? Because I feel like that's what they want.
That's kind of what I want.
That's what you want.
What I want. Yeah.
That's what you want. I'm just imagining you in a full body fishnet, being like, "Oh no, we are going to the Bahamas!" Like throwing a sign and a baby across the airport.
How dare you? I would never wear fishnets.
Again. So what do you think Mayor Pete's going to do? Because I feel like he's too busy pretending to listen to Padam Padam, and he doesn't know what's going on.
Exactly. He doesn't know what's going on. He has no idea what's going on. He's going to, go home and pretend to listen to Chase and, scream about his pills and white wine.
Alleged pills. Alleged white wine. It could be red. Yeah, it's kind of a problem. And I think that it's another thing where...
Scream about the person of color trying to help him raise those two poor innocent children.
Exactly. What is the meme or something like that they say, like, talking about how infrastructure is so bad? The everyday maintenance of complex systems is their greatest vulnerability. That's why we have trains falling apart and bridges and airports and everything like that. It requires everyday maintenance.
What are you talking about? Bridges are falling apart because they're racist, clearly.
Well... That's what happens when you hire based off of affirmative action. Which brings me to our next topic. Oh! That's a segue.
I set you up for that one.
That you set me up and I almost blew it. Supreme
what
Court.
Else is
Supreme Court rules 6-3.
You stick a carrot in his face and he blows it.
Frosty the Snowman doesn't deserve your slander, you son of a bitch.
He also doesn't deserve your poor skills. Anyway, sorry.
Supreme Court 6-3-6-2. This sounds like a boxing match.
Oh, yeah.
Rejects affirmative action. So this was two different cases.
Yes. So I want to clarify your... Yes. 6-3 on the University of North Carolina.
UNC.
6-2 because Ketanji Brown Jackson had to recuse herself because she was on the board of admissions for Harvard.
Oh. I thought it was because she was an affirmative action
No.
to Harvard.
No. To her defense, she recused herself properly because she was...
Because Ted Cruz asked.
She was on one of the deciding committees at the time that was in question.
Oh.
So she's
triply involved. Okay.
She properly recused herself, which I will give her credit for that. Thank you for not, conflict of interest here.
Yeah.
So yes, 6-3-6-2.
So in the minority in the minority of the decision, you had Sotomayor, diabetes, no good, and Elena Kagan. And then Ketanji in the 6-3 decision, and then Ketanji off of the 6-2 decision. Basically, you were talking about how a previous Supreme Court decision...
Grutter or Grutter, however you pronounce it.
I think it's a Grutter decision, yeah. Because we studied this in school with some people in the class who were definitely there due to affirmative action, which was kind of like, that's very meta. And it was, who was the justice who said, we'll reevaluate this in 25 years?
No. Okay, so to be clear and fair.
Yeah.
to be clear and fair.
Claire Underwood.
One conservative justice, and I forget who it was, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, at the time of the Grutter decision, both concurred that affirmative action in 2003 should be the law of the land.
Right.
Should be upheld.
Didn't it narrow the requirements for it, though? I think that it at least put some guidelines
Yes.
in. Like, it couldn't be naked affirmative action.
Yes.
Like, I think that the University of California had a point system, and they can't do that. It was like negative 150 if you're Asian, plus 100 if you're black, like something. But
giving a little bit of preference to certain minority groups was fine in certain regards.
I think the only part it struck down was the quota system. We're not reaching a quota, but you can still give preference to it.
Yes.
Okay, so it just took the numeric part out of it.
But the big thing here was, in that opinion, Ruth Bader Ginsburg
Peace be upon her.
Concurred that this is a temporary thing that should be revisited after about 25 years. They said, with, again, Ruth Bader Ginsburg concurring, that for at least the next 20 to 25 years, we should have this system in place to help what maybe in the past was not fair.
Okay.
But it should be revisited within 20 to 25 years. It has now been 20 years, and we have
revisited it.
We have a reason to revisit it.
Yes.
And in my opinion, a very blatant abuse of affirmative action to the effect of Asian students were actually being given negative numbers in their, admission scores.
Oh, wow.
To get in. That was part of the oral argument is effectively it was not because they were Asian, but because they were Asian that made them their essay was more poor.
It changed the weighting of their admission.
It's very complicated and convoluted, the oral argument that was made about it. It wasn't because they were Asian that deducted from their score, but them being Asian led to other things that then deducted from their score. So
they were practicing Asianism.
Ergo, being Asian deducted from their score. The Supreme Court said, no, that's not right. You can't do that.
And it seems like naked bias. I also understand. I'm going to do something that I think will surprise you. I'm going to take up the case for affirmative action. And here's why. The original idea behind affirmative action was not incorrect. And I think that Clarence Thomas made this clear. The idea that American descendant of African... American descendants of slavery is like ADOS. There's an acronym. So it's American descendants of the African slave trade. That it's traceable, like you lived here, your family came over and that, and you've had negative economic conditions and opportunities. The thinking behind affirmative action was, as a result, if the next generation, the younger generation, wants to go to school, and maybe they didn't go to such a good public school and they didn't receive an equal education to their peers, then they should receive some kind of positive enforcement to get them into college, which will lead to better community outcomes and better jobs and will improve the overall community. So it's a way to buoy people up in a positive way.
Yes.
Now, that's not even taking into account HBCUs, the historically black colleges and universities, like all that stuff, but it was considered a way that this rising tide can lift more boats. Okay, fine. This was pre-1965, when the 1965 Immigration Act went into effect. So the number of Asian students that were applying to colleges pre-1965 was a very, very small percentage of the population. You had some Chinese and Japanese immigrants, and maybe a few from other Asian countries, but you had almost practically like near zero Indian population in the United States. So this was not a factor in college admissions as much. It was white students and descendants of African slavery students, and then maybe a less than 5% other minority, and I think other provisions for students who were Native American. So just basically two, white and black. Okay. what it has become is you have students from Indian backgrounds, from all kinds of Hispanic backgrounds, getting their college applications weighed differently, and American descendants of African slavery have been pushed down and down and down and down. In fact, to the point where some people who are immigrants from Ethiopia or Nigeria, who are very wealthy and already successful, are benefiting from a system that was put in place just to benefit people who were of the same skin color but an entirely different background. And that's where the system has kind of been blown out of proportion. Also, you have a lot of people from countries who are the best of those countries and understand the prestige of coming to an American college and will pay the $50,000 a year to come over from India or to come over from China or wherever. And it's like college tourism. Like they come here, they go to college here, they stay here, they get accredited here, and then either go back and take an accredited seat back, or they stay here and then bring their whole family over. Either way, we are not helping the original people who that affirmative action was supposed to help. And, in fact, hurting everybody in the process, because you have some very qualified white students who maybe come from a very poor background and have nothing. They might be a first-generation college student. And they also get dinged in the process because of their heritage. So that's where we have a lot of problems here that I see, that the purpose for affirmative action was to right a wrong. The wrong has been fixed, but now we're entering a new dimension, and that's completely against the whole purposes of you're harming now a new minority.
That's not true, though.
In what way?
So, this is also what irks me, is that the left, a lot of the progressives, say that affirmative action is righting a wrong.
Yeah.
That's not actually the reason that it was put in place. As I understand, the reason it was put in place, like that is a byproduct of why it is used,
right,
and why people think it's helpful. But the reason it's put in place is to, especially for colleges, that's what we're talking about. Forget workplace.
Yeah.
Let's focus on the college issue. You're creating a class. You're creating an environment that is representative of the population as a whole. Mm-hmm. So you want to have 13% black. You're trying
That's
to
50% of the college admission.
Right. No, you're trying to recreate the country and the population demographics as a whole in a very small microcosm. That was the original use of affirmative action, and I understand that, because when you do go out to the workplace, when you do get a job, you're going to be surrounded by a representative population of the country, theoretically.
Yes.
Not when you go out to the real world, even, you're supposed to, take that into account. So that's where it was coming from. And I think the nail in the coffin, which I don't think was even brought up in the opinion, and which a lot of people are not acknowledging, the nail in the coffin during the oral argument for these cases was both universities, both Harvard and UNC, and I'm forgetting the name, the Students for Fair Admissions, or whatever the name of the group was that was the plaintiff.
Yeah.
They said, we can prove that under a different set of race-neutral admissions, you would still get about the same proportion of races.
Right.
So we're giving you a race-neutral system for admissions, and you're getting a non-statistically significant difference in percentages of class.
Okay.
Of races.
So you can do
that was the nail in the coffin, right? That was so you're still getting, all races and all peoples represented, not using race in the admissions process.
Right. Which is interesting.
That's pretty good.
That is good, too, because the previous nail in the coffin was standardized testing. Was if you have the same test issued and you have these excellent students, regardless of backgrounds, and they score high enough, then they should be fine. And the problem was, as you saw on like TikTok and stuff like this, was the kids saying, well, I had a 3.2 GPA, but I got into these 15 colleges, and some I didn't even apply for. And then other kids saying, I have a 4.7, and I couldn't even get into my community college. Like, what the fuck? So It's a wildly unequal system, but I think it's one, I'm going to sound like Coulter here, it's another one you can trace to immigration law. If we had an immigration moratorium, both illegal and legal, for a period of time, you can reset very easily back to this situation. If colleges were not allowed to accept foreign students for a period of time, then that would reset a lot of the original numbers that we're dealing with here. I mean, UC Irvine was in a situation where over a third of their student body was Asian, and they had to throttle the numbers down because it would have been over 60%. 2/3 of their student body would have been of Asian heritage because of the area that both the school is in and the number of qualified applicants that wanted to go there. So there was a situation where they said, we have to adjust for that. And 65, around the time when affirmative action was put into place, whether in federal hiring or in colleges or things like that, that wasn't even a consideration. So it's one of those things where maybe a well-intentioned idea got a little bit too far out of the barn. Because there was a conservative case for affirmative action. I mean, Nixon was somebody who even mentioned the importance of it when it came to hiring and things like that because of the descendants of African slavery. And it's another situation where now you have everybody jumping on. I mean, I'm surprised that even the gays haven't jumped on for this. Like, oh, we need affirmative action for, because we're gay and retarded. And too much proper usage before the age of 22.
Affirmative action for trainees.
I'm surprised that hasn't come yet.
Well,
but it's one of those things that's become a meme of itself now. And so it's like the idea of, I think even Clarence Thomas talked about, like, I'd like to think that I got here on the basis of my merit, and the policies being in place made me wonder, am I supposed to be here? Like, did I take a spot away from somebody else? I mean, I think that there should be a proliferation in the university system of so many spots available that you don't have to even question if you deserve to be there or not. But these elite institutions have made themselves elite by making a limited amount of people allowed to come in and be in those colleges. There's only so many, slots available in colleges. So, I don't know. I think it's a very interesting situation. My own little personal story for that being when I was asked about my heritage and applying to colleges, I was honest and I mentioned that, I was some Hispanic or Latino at the time. I think now it says Latinx or something stupid. And the second I got accepted into UCLA and I said yes, I got the day after I get something from the Mexican fraternity on campus being like, welcome and come to our barbecue and everything like that. And I'm being like, I have no interest in this. This is not, but it made me wonder if that's why I got into UCLA is because I had that. And I have other friends who, I know some who got into both Stanford and Berkeley, one of which was like a full ride. And this girl was like, I had no intention of going. I didn't even want to go to those schools. So, but she was of one of those minority groups, but not a descendant of African slavery. So that's I don't know. That's just where I see that it gets messy and this is a problem. Imagine if they didn't know the race of any of their applicants and that was not even allowed to be asked. Because you can't ask gender on a lot of forms. Now, what if you can't ask race?
No, I think this was the big takeaway is we're going, because of this decision, we're going towards a place where they cannot legally ask you your race on an application, but you can divulge it in your essay.
Well, I heard that was the...
Which is what they do anyway.
Well, that was what... Well, they...
no.
And by they, you mean Jews.
No. Which is what minorities do anyway, and that's good. That's fine. Tell me in your essay how you have worked your way to the top despite the shortcomings of being raised in a, if you were raised in a, poorer single parent or poorer atmosphere, but I worked my ass off and got a high score on the SAT and all of this stuff. Yes, tell me all of that in your essay, but do not check a box that says, yes, I'm black.
I checked that box, but this is the problem with, I think, having any considerations like that for any of that, and also emphasizing college so much is if you don't get into this school, you are going to be ruined for the rest of your life. Like, there's been a whole 3 generations now that have been told that, and it's resulted in college becoming more expensive, in students taking on a debt load when they shouldn't, and in students pursuing things that they actually aren't interested in or want to be doing. And it's become a really negative situation, I think. The whole point of having a state university system like the UCs and stuff like that was that it was cheap if you're in that state.
Right. there are two things that I'd like to talk about to tie this up.
Yeah.
So, first thing about specifically this decision, and I wanted to get your opinion on this quote that Jackson wrote. Mostly
Latoya?
because Ketanji Brown Jackson wrote
Is she older or younger than Tito?
In a concurring dissent, if that makes any sense, in a separate dissent. So Sotomayor wrote the official dissent, but Ketanji Brown Jackson wrote her own little thing. Mainly because I'm not sure exactly what this quote means. So hopefully you can parse this out.
Yeah.
But it sounds like some bullshit to me.
Like some bullshit.
So, quote, given the lengthy history of state-sponsored race-based preferences in America, to say that anyone is now victimized if a college considered whether that legacy of discrimination has unequally advantaged its applicants...
Advantaged?
...fails to acknowledge the well-documented intergenerational transmission of inequality that still plagues our citizenry.
That sounds like some bullshit.
It's like a bunch of buzzwords being thrown at us, but like semantically, what does this mean? Like, what is she trying to say?
It's just, I get what she's saying. She's saying that this is an important wrong to right, and if we remove this, then we're perpetuating the wrong still. That's basically what she's saying. It's an insane going about way of saying it, but that's what you get when you go to Harvard. You have too many words and not enough original thought.
So she's still pushing the systemic inequality stuff.
That's all the whole meme is. It's systemic racism, systemic. And because the good part about it being a system is you don't actually have to fix it, number one. And number two, it's not anyone's specific fault. You can just blame a system. Whatever system. The endocrine system. I don't know. Blame a system. I think that we should open up a hotel at the Ketanji Brown Jackson Intergalactic Spaceport and Nail Emporium. I think that's more. I think it's more important to America to have hotels in airports than it is to have affirmative action. But that's just my position.
Well, I want to also point out really quickly that the most diverse Supreme Court array of justices made this decision. So when you break it down, I guess percentage-wise, you now have 2 black justices.
Yes.
4 women to 5 men. So that's about representative.
Yeah.
That's about representative of the population.
Yeah.
2 out of 9 is a little bit more than 13%. Black.
Yeah.
You have a
Jew.
A Jew. You have a Mexican. Hispanic. I think we won't question their sexuality, so we won't get into that.
I was just going to say you have a faggot like Roberts.
But
with a faggot like Roberts, that has to be good.
Do we have, I guess we don't have an Asian. Who, by the way, Asians were the most affected by these these lawsuits. Anyway,
have we had an Asian Supreme Court? Yes. No.
I honestly don't know.
Let me look. Because I think that was another point of discussion of... have we had an Asian?
But I think it's a fairly good point that we have a Supreme Court justice panel that is pretty representative of the population of the United States in large, and they've made this decision that race-based affirmative action stuff is against the 14th Amendment.
Yes. Oh, you know what? Okay, this is where Trump screwed up. We could have had Judge Ito on the Supreme Court. Can you imagine? That would have been great.
Anyway.
You could have had the first Asian Supreme Court justice. Instead, you picked a drunk like Kavanaugh who's useless.
Well, my last point in about this race stuff in colleges, I think I've made it before, so I won't go into it. Do we have another thing to tie up before we finish?
No, everything else is too disparate.
Okay. That was a lengthy conversation, but well deserved and well needed.
But
because it's a pretty monumental decision that was made.
It's big because you've got an abortion last year, you have affirmative action this year, and there was a school choice thing, but there's always something back and forth with school choice. But abortion and affirmative action have been 2 of the most over talked about issues in American life in the past 50 years, and we're, and always used as a scare tactic. I think mostly by the left.
So there's another Supreme Court decision that we may touch on next episode, and then hopefully in the next week or so, the 303 Creative, the one about the gay marriage website, will come out, and we can have that to talk about. Well, that one might actually be interesting.
I still want to know, what's a gay marriage website? Like, they wanted a webpage saying, we're getting married.
Yeah, basically.
Just use Sniffles, or whatever it's called. Just use something else. You don't need a webpage. If you can't set up your own WordPress and you're gay, you shouldn't be getting married. I'm sorry. It's very easy. It's like a 3-step process. If you can't handle that, you can't handle getting married.
I don't know exactly what they wanted, but I don't know. It seemed complicated.
As always. And your ruling on today's verdict?
I say that affirmative action, just like all of you, should go fuck itself.
Hey!